Madara Uchiha's fall from grace came about from his reading of the altered stone tablet that the Sage of Six Paths once left. This, along with other grievances, left Madara without faith in what had once been his and Hashirama's greatest dream, with Madara leaving the village soon after to find ways to destroy what he had once helped to build. It was Madara who sought out and rediscovered the tailed beasts, in particular Kurama the Nine-Tails. He would return to Konoha with this tailed beast in tow, eventually utilizing its power to face his age-old frenemy Hashirama. Madara was the first to ever make use of the Majestic Armor Susanoo for Kurama, a trait later inherited by his successor, Sasuke Uchiha. In the end, Madara was killed, well, kinda, and his goals suddenly found themselves accomplished by Hashirama, who gathered all 9 beasts together before redistributing them, not yet sure what it was that he had. But all in all, Madara was alone in his attempts to crush Hashirama Senju, so we often forget that this was not Madara's original plan. Originally, Madara planned to show his clan that stone tablet, and to get them to believe that he was saving them and bringing true peace to the world. But in the end, they did not leave with him, refusing to believe in what he was saying. Sometimes, though, I wonder, what if they had? Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. We've also noticed that a lot of folks who are watching our videos aren't necessarily subscribed to the channel. We know that YouTube does a good job of recommending you what you want to watch, but if you want to make sure that you don't miss a video, or if you want to support the Amagi, make sure you hit that subscribe button, maybe even ring the bell. Thanks so much. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Hashirama sat silently on top of the Hokage rock. His smile was beaming as bright as the sun, as if he were having a contest with said star to see who could beam the brightest. The wind blew through his hair, and he felt as if this were the reason he'd been born at all. Every so often, his mind would wander back to his fallen brothers, Itama and Kawarama. He would think how much he wished they could see it. Suddenly, he found himself losing his competition with the sun. He shook his head and smiled even brighter, with simply a thank you in his head aimed towards his fallen brothers. After all, it was their sacrifice and love that had helped put him on this course and brought him to this peace. He stood there beaming until twilight, where he declared the contest a draw. He was so happy right now, he felt as if something could go wrong. "Something's wrong," a voice said from behind him. Hashirama's shoulders drooped as he sighed. "Something's always wrong, isn't it?" Hashirama said as he looked back at his brother Tobirama. "What is it now?" Tobirama stood there for a moment, silently. "You know it's Madara again." Hashirama rolled his head on his neck with an audible groan. "I really don't want to have this talk a 4th time. He stood up. "Where is he?" "The Uchiha compound. He's rallying the Uchiha." Hashirama's brow furrowed. "That's a step up from last time." "He's saying some pretty strange stuff," Tobirama said. "Something about how only he can read the tablet, how he can bring peace, how Konoha is a poisonous dream. And worst of all, the people are taking him seriously." Hashirama heard this and seemed shocked. "We need to get there, quickly." Tobirama held out his hand and grabbed him. "Not without your armor and guard." Hashirama looked at Tobirama. "A display of power will only push them away." Tobirama shook his head. "I heard them chanting death to the Hokage. I'm not letting you go without your armor and guard." Hashirama thought about it for a second. "Compromise. Guards. No armor." Tobirama looked at him skeptically. Hashirama gave him an "Are you serious?" look. "Tobi, you know I'm not weak. I can handle myself, with or without my armor. I'll be fine. We shouldn't put on a display of power. If we come at them with armed guards and full body armor, they're going to use that as a reason to resist and go against us. We need to appease them. We need to let them know that their voices are heard, and that we take their grievances very seriously." Tobirama rolled his eyes a little. "You know I don't like this idea, right?" Hashirama would let off a little laugh. "Since when have you liked any of my ideas?" The two would walk off. Just as promised, Hashirama allowed himself to be flanked by guards, but he showed up in his afternoon kimono as a sign of non-combat and peace. "Madara!" he cried out from across the crowd. All eyes suddenly turned to Hashirama. Madara crosses his arms. Hashirama looks around and raises his hands a little, as if taking in the sight. What is this? Why are you doing this? Madara stood there silently for but a moment, but then decided that his rival was owed an answer. This is the end of a partnership. Hashirama took a deep breath, realizing he was on this again. I told you, I would have been fine with you being Hokage. And if you would like to repoll the populace, I'm fine with that. I'll relinquish the title to you if the masses wish for it. Madara shook his head. There was a time when that mattered. Now it doesn't. This was never about me craving power. It had always been about equality between Senju and Uchiha. But your clan seems adamant that they won the war, and that we're only here by their good graces. Your Hokage-ship doesn't bother me, but the meanings behind it do. You are Hokage, and You will replace me, Hashirama said. No, that will be your brother, no doubt. And your brother will be replaced by another Senju or one of their followers, and then they will be replaced by a Senju and the next, and on, ad infinitum. And Uchiha will never hold the role of Hokage, because to the village's eyes, we're not members of the whole. We're the spoils of war. I should have known that true peace was too much for us. You may have mended relations between us in the real world, but you can never mend relations between us in our hearts, Hashirama. Hashirama listened to this before attempting to stutter a reply. At least let me try. Madara looked down at the ground for a moment. I know that you want to. I know that you have, and honestly, I appreciate it. You were the only Senju who had ever accepted us into the village. But that is where lies the problem. You're the only one. There's a difference between peace and quiet, Hashirama. And so long as people hold the scars and grudges from the last war, true peace will remain but an illusion. Hashirama didn't know what to say, and that much he said. I don't know how to fix this, Madara. I want to, but I need your help. Please, don't do this. This was our dream, ever since we were children. We wanted a world where children didn't have to fight and die in wars. That world, it's still not achieved, Hashirama. We lulled the fighting, for now. But it will eventually return, and then mothers will need to send their children to war. Fathers will come to find their sons and daughters dead in a field of blood, and brothers will find their siblings sleeping alone in a forest. That one hit Hashirama hard because he had experienced it. But he looked deep into Madara's eyes and saw the pain there. Madara had experienced it as well. Madara, I want that perfect world we imagined. I need you and your guidance. Please don't destroy this. Madara shook his head. Forgive me, Hashirama, but I have to do what's best for my clan. And what is best for your clan? Hashirama asked. Isolation? Madara looked up. A prophecy from the Sage of Six Paths. A path to peace for the Uchiha. The power held in our eyes. Something only we can do. I've known you for many years, Hashirama. You wouldn't go for the world I'm dreaming of. The world you seek and the world I seek are irreconcilable. You and I are from two separate worlds, Hashirama. Our ideas of peace are too different. I think it's best that the Senju and Uchiha go their separate ways. And that was the end of the conversation. Nothing Hashirama could do at this point would change Madara's mind. Madara simply decided to leave the village with his clan, and nothing short of force would change that. And using force would only lead to renewed conflicts between the Senju and the Uchiha. And so, Madara took the Uchiha clan as well as the Fuma clan and any other clan that might want to see what his ideas of peace are. Madara would go his way and form a new village that they came to know as Megakure, or as it had also been called, the village hidden by the eyes. In wondering what their village's symbol would be, Madara simply chose the symbol of their particular dojutsu, a 3 Tomoe Sharingan. That was what would be atop their forehead protectors. Madara, standing at the lead, would begin his study of the things related to the Sage of Six Paths, as well as the tailed beasts. He came to realize that finding and getting the tailed beasts was the easy part. The hard part was getting this strange dojutsu that the sage had, the Rinnegan. He had yet to decipher the full thing, so how to get the Rinnegan was a bit of a mystery to him. He knew that it must be a possible evolution of the Sharingan, beyond the Mangekyo, but what was it? How was it awakened? Surely it must require something unique, as it would have popped up before. So he continued to study, all while having those possessing Mangekyo Sharingan search for the tailed beasts. As the Mangekyo Sharingan possessed a Susanoo, this dojutsu was best to use against them. Though the issue with this was that most Mangekyo went blind before they could officially complete their Susanoo. The most skilled among the Uchiha could reach the full body, but reaching the completed perfect Susanoo was impossible, it seemed, for any who did not possess the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So Madara sought to change that. It became mandatory that any brothers that had not passed the age of 30, if both should awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, trade eyes to achieve the eternal Mangekyo. Those that did would be trained personally by Madara to make perfect use of them. This became his special force, a spiritual prelude to what would be his village's version of the Anbu. These he sent to find the tailed beasts across the world, searching out their locations and beginning containment. This worked out fine for quite some time, but eventually Madara hit a roadblock in his studies for how to achieve the Rinnegan. This almost drove him mad. "The Rinnegan," he said as he grit his teeth. "The Rinnegan!" He kicked over his chair. "Without the Rinnegan, this is all for nothing. I must achieve it." He fell to his knees. Was it possible that he was going to fail? That his severance of ties with Konoha was for nothing? That he had left his only true friend and the safety of his clan for nothing? "Hit a wall, eh?" a voice said from behind him. Madara felt a shiver run down his spine. Someone was in his personal study with him, but he hadn't sensed them enter. He turned around cautiously to see a being standing there in what could only be considered the world's longest sun hat. Made of straw, it looked almost more like a straw hood rather than a straw hat. Only two yellow, piercing eyes could be seen from under the straw, whatever it was. "Who are you?" Madara asked, with a slight hint of fear in his voice. A toothy grin appeared from beneath the hood. "The Sage of Six Paths." Madara's brow furrowed. "You lie. The sage has been dead for 1,000 years. The creature thought about it. In one sense, you're correct. In another, I'm correct. I'm not technically the Sage of Six Paths, so much as I am his will incarnate, sent to guide those who seek enlightenment." "How do I know that you speak the truth?" Madara asked. "Seeking stability, one god was divided into yin and yang. These opposing two, acting together, obtain all things in creation," Black Zetsu stated. Madara's eyes widened a little. Black Zetsu continued. "I was there when the stone tablet was written. I know what it says." Madara turned around. "Impossible. Even I couldn't read that until I possessed the eternal Mangekyo. You must..." Black Zetsu's grin returned to a happy little smile as he looked down at Madara. "I must be telling the truth then." Madara crawled over and prostrated himself before the being. "Please, what else does it say?" Zetsu explained it to him. "Do you know what it means when it said a god divided himself into yin and yang?" Madara shook his head. Zetsu continued. "It means that the power you seek, the power of the Sage of Six Paths, does not exist within any one person. It exists within two. And only when these two powers are united into one can the power be born anew." "And who are these people?" Madara asked. "They are those directly descended from the sage himself, the leading clan head of the Uchiha, and the leading clan head of the Senju." Madara was left speechless. "Myself and Hashirama." Zetsu's grin returned to its original full size. "Indeed." Madara kicked himself. "We were so close with one another. I could have awakened my Rinnegan at any point." Zetsu lifted Madara from the ground. "You still may. All you need to do is retrieve a piece of Hashirama's flesh, and I may be able to give you the power you seek." Madara nodded to this. "If it's as simple as that, then I can do it." Hashirama was at his home. The day had reached its end, and he was left to wonder the future of not only his clan, but of Konoha, of the world. Seeing how stressed Hashirama truly was, his wife, Mito, would come to him and cuddle up against him. "Madara and the Uchiha are not the same as they used to be. That era of mutual hate is over." Hashirama looked down with a bit of sorrow. "I wish that were true." He stood up from his seat, much to the surprise of Mito. "I'm gonna go to bed." That night, as he lay in bed, Mito snuggled up beside him. He couldn't help but stare at the ceiling. He hardly blinked. Thoughts of the past flooded his mind, fears for the future becoming ever prevalent. He looked over to the side and saw a picture of himself, Mito, and their youngest son, Tajirama. He thought how very soon that innocent soul may be forced to fight. In a moment, as if it were a premonition, he saw himself on the battlefield once more, Tajirama in his arms, bleeding out. It almost forced him to tears. Little did Hashirama know that a set of eyes were watching him from the distance. Unable to sleep, Hashirama left the bed and began to venture around the house as if he were seeing it for the first time. Poking at paint chips, compulsively mopping at that one stain over and over again. He even partook in that oldest and noblest of manly traditions by stepping off the back of his porch to take a whiz. The Uchiha watching him averted their eyes only once during their watch, and it was that moment then. However, this presented itself as the perfect opportunity. When his back was turned and he wasn't paying attention, he would be approached from behind. However, one misstep would cause the rustle of grass. Suddenly, the blades of grass grew over, ensnaring his two assailants. He would turn around and step to them, looking into their Sharingan. Uchiha? His brow became a bit more disturbed. Why? What does this mean? He asked them. Surely Madara doesn't wish to fight me. I don't want to start that war again. He did not hear the third assailant approach from behind. A kunai was pressed into his back. Hashirama cried out in pain as he grabbed the hand of whoever had stabbed him and flipped him over his shoulder. The Uchiha would then utilize fire release to burn the grass away. He took a step back, the ground erupting in tree roots before him, as if he were a ship's bosun unfurling a set of whips to punish an unruly crew. I do not know what this is, but I will not retaliate against your village, nor will I harm you if you turn around now and leave. Hashirama? A voice called from behind. It was Mito. He looked behind her. Unbeknownst to everyone, Madara himself was in a nearby tree looking down. He would pull his katana and jump down from above. Hashirama! Hashirama would look back up and see Madara and instinctively raise an arm to defend himself, only for that arm to be severed at just below the elbow. Hashirama fell to his rear as he gripped his severed arm. Madara would pick it up. He looked to Hashirama. Come now, don't be a child about it. You and I both know it will grow back. It always has. It always will. Hashirama looked at him. Why? What have I done to deserve this? Hashirama asked. Madara shook his head. Not a damn thing. The world I dream of requires work. Collecting this is one of those things. Hashirama was silent as he watched Madara grasping his severed arm. Madara looked down at Hashirama once with what could have been a touch of remorse and pity. But whatever feelings he had on this matter didn't last long as he turned around and began making his way off without further explanation. But to their surprise, the Hokage's guards were on them in a second, giving chase. During this chase, they managed to catch one of the three assailants, though the others and Madara managed to escape. Returning to Megakure, Madara would deliver the arm to Zetsu, who would take it with a smile. Ah, it's still warm. That's good. Now, time for your own sacrifice. Madara was confused. What? Zetsu stepped a little closer to him. Your own left arm. Remove it. Madara was shocked by this and pulled his blade on Zetsu. You expect me to dismember my own hand? I think not. Zetsu stood there silently for a moment, cocking his head. What is it? Do you no longer seek the power of the Rinnegan? Madara was confused. The power of the Rinnegan? Zetsu nodded. Madara grit his teeth. He braced himself and quickly removed his own arm with his katana, groaning through the pain. He fell to his knees. He felt pain, but not in any existing nerves. His mind was conscious of the severance of nerves, and now the nerves that no longer sent signals echoed phantom pains through his body. Zetsu would then proceed to place the arm of Hashirama Senju onto Madara's stub, utilizing Zetsu flesh to serve as a median between the two, adding to it the mystic palm technique with such grace that it was as if the arm had never been severed. It was noticeable to Madara that this was not his arm, and he knew it would take some time to get used to it, but if this was the cost of gaining true peace, then he had paid far worse debts. When will the Rinnegan awaken? Madara asked. In due time, Zetsu said. In due time. For now, continue to collect the tailed beasts. That way, when the time arrives, you may complete your quest. And so, that's exactly what Madara did. All the while, Hashirama and Konoha took the Uchiha assailant prisoner and began questioning him about his plan. It was Tobirama doing the questioning. Despite Hashirama being stronger, Tobirama was by far the more intimidating of the two. His methods were far more painful than anything Hashirama would have chosen, which is why Tobirama specifically asked his brother not to watch. Upon seeing what appeared to be pliers and bamboo shoots on the tray being taken inside, Hashirama knew it best not to question his brother's tactics. And it ended up being for the best, as Tobirama eventually found Hashirama and began speaking to him about the things he had learned. How's that arm? Tobirama asked. Hashirama held it up. It was still forming, but the fact that it could grow back at all was astounding to Tobirama, who truly wondered what it was that made his brother special. Tobirama pushed the thought away as he began to explain what he had learned. The Uchiha finally talked. And what did he say? Hashirama asked. He said that Madara had been gathering the 9 mythical beasts. Hashirama was shocked. The tailed beasts. But aren't those just myth? According to the Uchiha, they're real, and Madara already has 8 of the 9, Tobirama said. Apparently, last night, Madara came specifically to collect a part of your body for use in awakening some advanced variant of the Sharingan, something that will evolve his Mangekyo into something even stronger. Why? Hashirama asked. That's the issue, we're unsure. But according to what I've learned, Madara plans to use the power of this new dojutsu and the tailed beasts to unleash a planet-wide genjutsu that will cast everything into a world of dreams. His idea of a peaceful world, a world where nobody's conscious. Hashirama was startled. That can't be true. Tobirama shook his head. I didn't give the Uchiha any reason to lie to us, at least not any good reason. So more than likely it is the truth. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Madara sat in his office waiting for a status report from his men about the capture of the Ninetales. As he waited, he found himself waiting a very long time. A troublesome amount of time. Eventually, he sent a new squad out and they didn't return either. Finally, he sent a 3rd squad out not to engage but to check on the status of the previous 2. Only 1 person returned from that. This person confirmed that teams 1 and 2 had been killed by the Ninetales and that his own team fell victim to a surprise attack. He confirmed that the Ninetales' strength was above anything they had ever faced, with the Ninetales being perhaps as strong as the vast majority of tailed beasts put together. Due to this, Madara decided to go himself to face the Ninetales. No squad, he didn't want to waste any more lives. If he himself could not defeat it, then it was a moot point. Madara would find himself trudging through the forest. With every step he took, he felt as if he were getting smaller and smaller. The trees around him were growing so large. This place was echoing out with the most tremendous nature energy. The very ground itself felt alive, as if it were somehow a sentient creature, the flowers pointing it in the direction of the source of its strength. As he traveled further, he found a massive temple, not too unlike the ones found for the previous 8 beasts. Within, he found the Ninetales. Its eyes opened and met his as an earth-rumbling snarl was heard. The eyes rose higher and higher until they stood at the size of a mountain. Another morsel comes to offer itself as my snack, the beast said in a voice so deep that Madara felt it in his chest more than anything. I am not your morsel to eat, Fox. I'm your master to obey. A loud laugh was heard from the shadows, loud enough to threaten to burst Madara's eardrums. Still, he didn't cover his ears. He was projecting power upon the fox. The ground shook with every step as the beast circled Madara. Let's hope you're more fun to play with than the rest of those cowards. With a loud roar, the Ninetales pushed Madara out of the temple. Madara landed on his feet and skid to a stop. He looked up. For the first time he saw it, red fur glowing orange in the sun as crimson eyes lit up from the distance. Madara could feel the chakra coming off this thing. He knew for certain that even one misstep would lead to his death. He would need to push himself beyond his normal limits to be able to handle this thing. He began running towards it again. Kurama would simply charge a tailed beast bomb and launch it at him. Madara would summon his full-body Susanoo and use it to jump over the bomb. Madara found how truly difficult it was to fight this as he was. He was too small to dodge any attacks, yet if he used his Susanoo, he'd be too large to avoid the tailed beast ball, and he was certain that his Susanoo could not withstand the force of this attack. If he could get close enough to catch the beast directly in his gaze, it should be more than enough to cast it under genjutsu, but the issue was getting close enough to try. Kurama was smart enough not to look directly into Madara's eye. It scooped up the ground along with Madara, flinging him away. It's hilarious, the folly of humans. Their pride and inability to see the truth, the delusion in their eyes, the unwavering faith in themselves to a ridiculous degree. They refuse to see reality for what it is. When are you going to wake up to reality, human? It's the weak's destiny to serve the strong. This is nature taking its course. Madara rose to one knee, propping on his katana with one hand. Perhaps that's true, he said. Perhaps there are causal relationships that cannot be separated. But that isn't going to change the fact that I'm going to reconcile them. And you're going to help me do it, you dirty, rotten beast, whether you want to or not. As he said this, he raised his head with a smile, displaying a brand new set of Rinnegan. Madara stood and pressed his hand forward as Kurama growled. Kurama fired another tailed beast ball at him. Limbo, Madara shouted as suddenly his body disappeared. The explosion passed right by the place Madara had been. Kurama looked around. He could neither see nor sense him.
Come out, you little coward. Show yourself.
If that is your wish. Suddenly, all around Kurama were a multitude of Susanoo, each one controlled by a shadow clone. The shadow clones would strike down on Kurama with their Susanoo, wailing on him, holding him down. Suddenly, Madara appeared from one of the Susanoo and jumped down onto Kurama's snout. All that bluster, all that strength, all that pride, and what did it do for you, Ninetales? Nothing. It brought you nothing. Now submit yourself to my servitude. Suddenly, he cast the beast under Genjutsu. Madara would return to Megakure, riding triumphantly upon the Ninetales, the mark of his Rinnegan within its eye. Black Zetsu watched this from behind. From the area outside, he demanded that all tailed beasts be brought to him. When they were, Madara would summon the Geto statue and prepare to seal each and every beast into it. Upon doing so, it began to transform into the Ten-Tails. Some of the Uchiha began to grow scared of this beast, but Madara told them to fear not because he had the Rinnegan, and this thing must serve the Rinnegan. As it finally formed, he would then perform, under Zetsu's guidance, the hand seals for Six Paths Ten-Tails Coffin Seal. Absorbing the beast into himself, he would vie for control against its ferocious power. Eventually, he would gain the upper hand, and he would suddenly awaken as the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. But just as this happened, the armies of Konoha had marched on them, with Hashirama leading them.
Madara, what are you doing? He demanded to know. This world you're hoping to create, a world of dreams, that is no world at all, and will be the end of the human race.
Madara smiled.
Hashirama, have you seen the human race? The selfishness, the petty squabbles that lead to the genocide of entire clans, villages, nations. Our war. We didn't even remember what it was about, and yet we still fought. So tell me now, does humanity really deserve to continue existing like this? I say we forge a world of dreams, one where everyone is free to do as they will. And then, when the last human on Earth perishes peacefully into a blissful dream, the world will know peace. Madara, that's foolishness. The world you seek to create isn't real, it's imaginary. You plan to put everyone into a deep slumber and let them die? I will not stand for that. I will not let it come to pass.
Madara smirked.
You assume you can stop me? I can, and I will, Hashirama shouted.
Madara shook his head.
You will try.
And so the forces of Konoha and Megakure began to clash. Hashirama and Madara were the ones to face off the hardest. Hashirama would summon a grove of trees around himself and Madara in hopes of blocking off any others from stopping their battle. He would summon vines, which seemed to disintegrate before they even touched Madara. Madara would rush forward and place a fist into Hashirama's jaw with enough force that Hashirama feared it broken.
You may have been stronger than I before, but the moment I gained my Rinnegan, we became even. And now that I have the Ten-Tails, there's no way for you to defeat me. If only you had remained at home, you would have gotten to enter this world of dreams blissfully. A world where our two villages were yet still one. A world where Itama and Kawarama were ruling beside you along with Tobirama. Where you never had to face a war. Where all the hardships of your life never existed.
Hashirama spit blood.
That's the thing, Madara. Without those hardships, I wouldn't be who I am today. Thank you, but no thank you. I am who I am because of those hardships. I was happy in spite of them. A perfect world like that with who we are would be boring. I'd rather struggle.
Madara grit his teeth.
Then you never craved the peaceful world at all.
He rushed at Hashirama. Hashirama would raise his katana and race to meet him. He would swing his blade, but Madara would not defend. He would merely take the shot as he knew he could handle it. Instead, he tore his hand through Hashirama's stomach, pushing it out the back. Hashirama expelled blood from his mouth, his eyes wide as he seemed to be held up by the hand. He struggled against it, but failed. Madara looked at him.
I was nothing compared to what I am now, Hashirama. You are nothing compared to who I am now.
He would remove his hand from Hashirama's body and let his old adversary fall to the ground. Hashirama would curl into a ball as if somehow that might ease the pain, but sadly it didn't. He felt his soul leaving his body.
Please, don't do this.
He reached out for Madara, but Madara pushed the hand away.
It will happen, Hashirama. Don't worry. Even if it's not really you, I'll make a version of you in my dream, and one that would never betray me.
Hashirama felt himself slip away. Awakening to the presence of an old man humming, he would sit up.
Ashura, you're awake.
Who? Hashirama would ask. The old man stroked his chin.
I forgot. You're more used to being called Hashirama in this life.
Who are you? Hashirama asked.
I am the sage of 6 paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, he said.
From here, Hagoromo would begin to explain everything to Hashirama. The history between Indra and Ashura, the history of the Ten Tails, the purpose of the infinite Tsukiyomi, and the existence of Kaguya. To be perfectly honest, Hashirama didn't seem to understand much of it, but what he did understand was that he needed to stop Madara, which was okay with him, because he was planning to do so anyway. "Come here," Hagoromo said. "I wish to give you something." Hashirama would approach. "Just like in ages long past, I once more pass along to you my title and my power. Awaken, Hashirama Senju, Sage of Six Paths." He would funnel his power into Hashirama, granting him the power of six paths. In each of Hashirama's hands was one symbol. "The power of your bond is the reason why you can beat Indra. It's the reason why you beat Madara. You possess a reason to fight. Continue to fight, Ashura. Save your bonds from being severed." And with that, Hashirama stood up again. Madara turned back to look and saw him. "What?" Hashirama removed his armor as he entered Sage Mode. Across his collarbone were 6 Magatama, and across his back were 9 more under the rings of 6 paths. Hovering around him were Truth Seeker orbs, one of which turned into a staff. Madara laughed. "You never stop surprising me, Hashirama. It's as if my good fortune somehow warps reality just to give you an edge, but it's too late." He rose into the air to cast the infinite Tsukiyomi. Hashirama didn't have time to stop it, so he covered himself in a dome of Truth Seeker orbs, and then further defended himself by covering himself in a dome of tree vines. The light of the Tsukiyomi shined down upon all. The ground rumbled with the spread of the Ten Tails vines. As this came to an end, Hashirama emerged from the domes. Madara lowered himself down. "Sad. It seems you will never witness the perfect world. If you want so badly, then I'll simply send you to the next. Round 2. Hashirama ran at Madara now, his staff in his hand to match that of Madara. They clashed together, 2 equally matched beings facing off, vying for dominance in a silent world. Madara would swing his staff, but Hashirama would dodge under it and respond with a kick to the solar plexus. He orbits his Truth Seeker orbs around him, attempting to strike Madara with them. Madara dodges the first 4, but when the 5th comes in, he takes it square to the face, knocking him back. Freeing himself, Hashirama throws his spear at Madara, impaling him and pinning him to the ground before casting Wood Release through several thousand hands, summoning a massive statue that would then proceed to pummel Madara with fists. As the attack ends, Hashirama summons back his staff. He looks down and sees Madara standing in the dust, his body damaged, his breathing heavy. "How come?" Madara asks. "How come?" Hashirama looks on, attempting to understand. Tears start dripping down Madara's face, softening the ground, flowers springing up with the pure essence of life energy within them. "How come you always win? How come I always have to work hard to be the best and then you just step right into it without explanation? This power, I spent years cultivating it. Why am I never good enough?" Hashirama looked down. "You've always been good enough, but you've never thought to see it. You've been living in your own dream world, that you've failed to see reality as it truly is, what it truly could be. You did not look at what we built, only what we missed, and grew discouraged. You lost faith in the power of your bonds. That's why you lose." Madara looked down. "I just wanted a world of peace. I lost all my brothers. I lost all my bonds. You still have Tobirama. I have no one." Hashirama jumped down and slowly walked to him. "That's not true, Madara. You have me." He offered his hand. Madara looked at it and then looked up at Hashirama confusedly. "Huh?" Hashirama smiled. "You've got me. We're still friends, aren't we? Take my hand. End this madness. Come back to Konoha. We may not be perfect, but we can do it together so long as we continue to believe in our bonds." Madara looked at the hand. He reached out to grab it, but suddenly a third right hand appeared. Hashirama was confused. Madara was as well for a moment as blood dripped from his lip. He looked back. Zetsu was standing there. "Man, I gave you everything, and you still couldn't do it. Well, no matter. You were more of a vector than anything, and now that the flow of chakra is going to the Ten Tails, Mother can be reborn once more." Suddenly, Madara swelled up, mutating under the pressure of the chakra, and a moment later, that swelling dispersed as the form of Kaguya Otsutsuki appeared. Once more, Black Zetsu merged with her. She looked up for a second. "Hagoromo." She reached out to touch his face. "No." "Hamada?" "No." "Ashura." Tears streamed down her face. "Ashura, you remind me so much of my son." "That's nice," Hashirama said. "I hated my son." Hashirama's eyes widened as her hand gripped him by the neck. "Oh, She lifted him up and began absorbing his chakra. He tried to stop her. Suddenly, before he could touch her, she noticed the seals on his hand and threw him. Hashirama rolled. He rose to his feet. Seeing that she was at a disadvantage, she could switch the dimension to one of her own. The gravity had increased by quite a bit in hopes of stopping his movement. Hashirama would stand there resolute though. She would shoot at him with her all-killing ash bones. Hashirama would dodge them before creating a dozen wood clones. Each one rushed at her. She utilized her gentle fist technique to strike them all before they could get to her. However, he would sneak up on her and grip her arm. In a moment of panic, she would separate from Madara, hoping that he would seal him instead and waste the seal. Hashirama didn't, however. When Madara was pulled out, he saw the state his body was in. Hashirama smiled. "You just screwed yourself over, Super Granny. The only thing more dangerous than me is me and Madara together." He would split half of his Six Paths chakra and funnel it into Madara to revive him. Madara would then wake up with the moon mark on his hand, Hashirama having traded it over. Madara would then form his staff and his Truth-Seeker orbs. Hashirama then spoke to him. "All we need to do is touch her with our two seals at the exact same time and we'll be able to seal her." Madara looked at the seal and smirked. "Fine, let's defeat her here." The two of them would rush at Kaguya, shadow clones, wood clones, Susanoo. As strong as Kaguya was, she may have had infinite power, but her volume and attention span were limited. She would strike as many as possible. Sensing that she's about to be sealed again, she would expel Black Zetsu from her body. And just as predicted, Madara and Hashirama managed to touch her, sealing her away. Zetsu watches as his mother is sealed into another moon and the tailed beasts separate from her. However, before he can escape, he too is destroyed by Madara, who possessed quite the grudge. And with that, the battle was over. As Hashirama and Madara stood there, the sage looked at them. He commended Hashirama on a job well done, though he could only scowl at Madara. Madara looked away with a sigh and then down at the ground, but suddenly he felt his head pulled into the sage's bosom. "I'm sorry I didn't see you fall into the darkness earlier, Indra. I was a poor sage, and an even poorer father to you. I hope you can forgive me." The sage would then pull back and smile at the two of them. "I'm glad to see the two of you have come together for this. It shows that even the curse of hatred placed upon my bloodline can be undone. I task you both to use my power and to bring peace to the world the proper way." "The way Hashirama wants to do it won't last," Madara said. "Please, tell us the way to make it last." The sage smiled and shook his head. "Always burdened were you with the things you cannot control," the sage said. "That's the thing, Indra. There is no way to do it. What will be, will be. We cannot make that decision for them, and we cannot take their choice away. Peace is not a goal to be achieved, but a state one must continually work toward. So long as two people exist in the world, there will always be disagreements. But it's through these disagreements that we grow. Bring peace as your heart tells you is right, and then pass the torch to the next generation. Task them with the same. Eventually, if this line continues, perhaps peace will one day be the universal choice. But for now, perhaps you should consider undoing the infinite Tsukiyomi." Madara, of course, would do this. In the end, Madara and Hashirama made peace, and peace between the Uchiha and Senju was restored. Madara and his village would eventually merge once again with Konoha as both strove for peace throughout the world. Of course, this could not stop war, and at this time, Madara and Hashirama were okay with that. All they knew was that so long as they lived peacefully themselves and taught others how to do so as well, the rest of the world might learn. And that's the end of the story. What did you think? Did you like it? Madara has always been my favorite character, with second and third being Obito and Itachi, respectively. Uchiha are always just such deep characters because they're always so emotionally involved with everything. A clan full of Anakin Skywalkers. Not to mention, I've always wanted to see Hashirama with Six Paths Sage Mode. But what did you think of the video? Do you have more ideas? Leave a comment below and tell us about it. Until next time, peace out.
Did you enjoy our video? Well, then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.